My name is Patricia Kathleen, and this podcast series will contain interviews I conduct with women, female identified, and non binary individuals regarding their professional stories and personal narrative as it relates to their perspective. This podcast is designed to hold a space for all individuals to learn from their counterparts, regardless of age, status, or industry. We intend to transparently investigate the evolving global dialogue regarding underrepresented figures in all industries across the USA and abroad. By hosting these stories and conversations, we aim to contribute to the changing platform and representation of these individuals for the future. Now let's start the conversation. Welcome back. This is your host, Patricia, and today I am sitting down with Sadie St Lawrence. Sadie is the founder of Women in Data. Welcome, Sadie.
Thanks, Patricia. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm excited to climb into both Women in Data as well as I know you've got a couple of other things going on with you. Really quickly, Sadie's website is sadiestlawrence.com. For any of those looking to get more into what we talk about here today, please visit that. A quick roadmap for today's podcast for everyone listening and new to us. We're first going to look at this podcast will follow a roadmap that's similar to all podcasts on this series. First, it'll analyze questions regarding Sadie's academic background and early professional life to give us kind of a purview of who she is as an entrepreneur, as a professional person. Then we'll unpack women in data and other endeavors that Sadie may have. We'll get into the logistics of who, what, when, where, why, and how. And then we'll get into some of the other like ethos or philosophy behind it. Maybe some of the populations that or areas that she specializes in with women in data as well as the other endeavors. And then we'll turn towards goals that Sadie has for the next 3 years regarding scaling, expansion, any personal goals within that tie in. We'll wrap everything up with advice that Sadie has for those of you looking to either mirror what she has done with some of her success or get involved with her current endeavors. Really brief bio on Sadie before I start peppering her with questions. Sadie St. Lawrence is the founder of Women in Data, an AI strategy consultant for Accenture, and a data science teacher on Coursera. She loves helping others realize their purpose and manifest their dreams. That's a very tight, neat bio, Sadie. I like that. I try to keep my bio like 2 sentences or less. And I'm like, I'll lose them. But
exactly.
It gives me a lot to ask about, which I love. But before we get into unpacking women in data, would you give everyone like a brief synopsis of your academic background and early professional life to kind of offer that bird's eye view about you?
Yeah, definitely. So I love to share my story because it wasn't a straight path into data science and AI and all the tech work I do. And I actually find that when we see women getting into this field, I call it kind of the pinball method. You know, they bounce around a lot before they find that one kind of calling or purpose. And so that definitely happened for me. So I actually started out in school for piano performance, so quite different than anything working on computers or with data. And this really was because in high school and in all of my, early education, I didn't have an actual academic record. And so when I went to apply for colleges, they were kind of like, we just don't know what you can do. And so I played the piano for them and they're like, well, we can tell you're talented and smart. And so we'll give you scholarships for that. And so it kind of was the natural progression to go into that. It was something I really enjoyed and it allowed me to get into school. But soon after being in a piano performance major, I started taking all these science classes and I just realized like how much more the world there was out there and how much I really wanted to explore the scientific method and do research. And so I switched my major to psychology and neuroscience. And at that time, I was working really heavily in research labs. So I worked in an evolution and ecology of fishes lab. I worked in a neurobiology lab of emotional learning and memory. And I fell in love with it. I fell in love with just research and the process of the scientific method. But as I finished my undergraduate, I realized that one, I didn't want to kill rats anymore or be stuck in like a dark closed room of a lab.
Yeah.
So I really look to see, how do I get rid of the parts of my job I don't like and add more to the parts I do like. And what I loved was that analysis part. And this was in 2014. So data science was very immature. It was just started in 2010. And so there were actually only 5 schools giving master's degrees in data science. And so I decided to go that path, and then went in and got my master's in analytics and data science, and then have just been exploring all the facets of that field since then.
And like you said, it's really kind of burgeoned since that time period. It's interesting when you're kind of this founding pillar, this founding mind in a field, because you can really watch, some of the beginnings grow and then trends begin to form out of that. I'm wondering, when you were getting your master's, did you know that you kind of wanted to get into AI strategy as a consultant, or did you form that after your master?
I formed it after, when I first got into the field, there was just so much to learn. And like many new people I see coming in, it's just like, I don't even know really who I am or what I want to be in this field. And so the strategy aspect really took the experience, because now I've been working in it for about 5 years. And so from there, I was like, okay, I have all this experience in working in data engineering and data science and AI and all the realm of tech that it encapsulates it. And I really wanted something where I could apply that overall. And so the strategy was a natural progression. And I love to be high level now. I love to look at problems, and I like to communicate that. And so it really is a natural progression. I think when you pursue what you love and just learn, your path will just kind of unfold to you. And that's how it did for me here.
Yeah. Did you ever go in-house after you concluded your master's degree, or did you go straight into consultancy?
No, so I actually worked for a vision insurance company for about 4 years. And in that, I was a research analyst. I was an analytics enablement engineer. I was a data scientist. And so that was really cool to be part of an organization and help them with their analytics maturity and stay there for that whole time. Sometimes consultants have a bad rep of coming and giving you a recommendation and then walking away. Yeah. And so I got that experience of seeing, okay, what happens when you implement that recommendation? Does it work? And so after I had that experience, it really made sense for me personally to go into consulting, because I'd tried a lot of things and failed, and I wanted to use those experiences to help other people.
Nice. Yeah. Well, I was just discussing with another podcast the difference between consultancy and contracting.
Mm-hmm.
And how contracting kind of employs something that they sit around and continue to function with. And consultancy is getting an expert opinion that may or may not be implemented by said individual. So I think it's cool that you kind of differentiated that yourself as well. So let's get into Women in Data. How was it founded? Was there an impetus for the launch? What year did it launch? And were you the only founder?
Yeah, so I was the only founder. It was in 2015. I was actually getting my master's degree at that time, and I was working full time. And just because the whole industry was relatively new, there wasn't a community for it where I was. And then there wasn't any type of community for women who were working in this space. So since I was working, I was experiencing, hey, where are all the women in this space? But then where's the community? And so it started just with a meetup group. I will say I launched an event and said, hey, does anyone want to come network at this location? And I was terrified because for the first 15 minutes, no one showed up. And I was just so embarrassed and was sitting there by myself. Took a book. I called my boyfriend at the time and was like, what am I doing? This is dumb. This is crazy. And he's like, wait 5 more minutes. And I was like, okay, I can hold on for 5 minutes. And 3 people ended up showing up. And I just think back to that moment all the time of how often do we give up before, 3 feet from gold, or there's, 3 people who come to your meeting and really start the foundation of it. So yeah, it was really exciting to see how it's taken off just from really meager beginnings.
So let's get into how it's structured. What is it? Can you describe it for the audience, and how is it structured? What is the intention, and who does it serve?
Yeah, so our mission is to increase diversity in data careers, and we really do this through 3 areas of supporting our community with awareness, education, and then helping them advance in their career. And what we do now is we have chapters in 16 locations internationally, and they hold quarterly events. And so they hold, we kind of outgrew our meetup platform, and so they hold quarterly symposiums. And this really facets on that awareness. So anyone can come to these events and get an idea of what's happening in the industry, but it's also just a great place to network with other women working in tech and in this area. And then from there, we also have quite a few programs. So we do a residency program. So it's a great way for people who are transitioning their careers to get some experience working in data science or in data engineering. And then we partner with companies to provide a job board and help people get placed into careers and advance in their career.
And when you say in this area, which region are you referring to?
So again, we have chapters in 16 locations. The majority are in the US today. Just this year, we launched, expanded our international. So we have one in Vancouver and one in Nairobi, and then we have one coming in Berlin, and then a couple other locations in Europe and Asia. But right now, the majority, if you're in the US, we're all on the East Coast and West Coast and centrally located. We're trying to fill in a little bit more in central parts of the US. It's a little bit harder, but yeah, pretty heavily located in the US today.
So how is it structured? Is it franchise based or is it chapter based? And are you kind of running that entire show, or do you have other people that are helping? How much, what are the kind of key differences that could exist between 2 different locations? All of that.
Yeah, so really it's chapter based, but we do a lot on the organizational side. So what a chapter is responsible for is really holding those local events, but we provide them with all the materials that they need. They're really just responsible for getting a location and then getting local speakers. And then as an organization, we work with companies to partner and find jobs. We are the ones who put on like the residency program and the larger overall program. It's because a lot of the people who work on the chapter side are volunteers. So things that take longer time commitments, we do that as an organization.
Nice. So the different areas that you specialize with, you talked about diversity. Does it span gender, racial, ability? When you talk about diversity, how are you guys defining it?
Yeah, so we define diversity just in terms of gender and ethnicity. And so obviously with our name, we're focused on getting women or people who identify as female into the field. We do allow men to attend our events, and we were just chatting before the show about how sometimes you create these things for women and men that come in and want to support, which we love. There's a lot of men who have women in data stickers on their laptops or wear our shirts, and they're great to have as allies, and we encourage them to come to our events as well, because we think it's important to show a world where men and women are working together, and then to be involved in a female-led environment and see and experience what that looks like. So yeah, target audience is, women of all, above the age of 18 and of all ethnicities. And then men are welcome, but our primary focus is for women.
Have you been approached by any other like-minded, I keep thinking of organizations or nonprofits or even political groups that would want to kind of affiliate or partner up with you? Has that taken place or been anything on your radar that you've thought about doing?
Yeah, so there are other similar organizations that are more located geographically. So like She Loves Data is a similar organization to ours, and they're more heavily focused in Asia. There's a Women in Data Science conference at Stanford. And so we really do try and partner with other organizations that are similar to ours. The way we look at it is there are so many, this is such a big problem. The more people we can have tackling it from different angles, the better. And then we have done a partnership with Girl Scouts before, where we took our membership and really just had the women come in and share their stories or do workshops. There's a lot of liability in working with people of younger demographics. So we love to partner with organizations who specialize in that and then just bring in our expertise to be mentors.
Yeah, I'm feeling like the outreach is like that it kind of reaches on with the Girl Scouts, but like high school organizations or things like that where you can kind of nab up some of these individuals and groups, of individuals at a younger age is kind of paramount to the fix, right? Making sure that we educate young women and women identified individuals from before getting into college about the data field and the applicability of their lives there.
Yeah, we see that as really just a big need for awareness in that space. When I was in high school, this wasn't even a career option, right? So it's really hard to, if I'm teaching them tools or something, I don't know if those tools are going to be around or be relevant, right? But sharing that awareness of like, hey, this is what a woman in tech looks like, or this is what a woman in AI looks like, right? Just providing that awareness so that people can identify and say, oh, that may be a direction I want to go, or I can explore it further, has like such a great impact. And again, it just comes down to like sharing those stories and, being your authentic self. This is who I am, and I work in this space. And maybe there's something they can relate to there.
Absolutely. So looking forward with what you've got going on, it sounds like there's exponential growth every single year as far as expansion with geography. But do you have any kind of dedicated goals for the next 3 to 5 years that you'd like to see, particularly women in data doing?
Yeah, so we're really focused on how do we help our members grow in their career and become leaders. And we do annual research just to see like what do they feel are the barriers. And the number one thing they found are like the barriers are not having enough females in representation in leaderships in their organization and as mentors. And so right now, we're heavily working on building a mentorship program, but also then creating more of an offline community for people to engage with. So we have a good problem where we have to kick people out of our events because they stay so long to talk and are just so hungry to connect with other people. And so we really want to see how can we build that community in an online fashion more too, so that it's not just there for you at a quarterly event, but you can connect with Women in Data's network of 7,000 plus members anytime, because that's really where the power happens, is allowing people to connect with others and know and see that there are leaders out there, or you can be a mentor, or you can be a mentee, and there's opportunity to connect with those people.
Yeah, it's all about the Zoom parties, right? I've talked to a lot of different industries. No, I was just speaking with a craft cocktail mixer founder, and she was saying that one of her ideas that I thought was so clever was doing like Zoom party hangouts with the founder. So getting, everyone getting a cocktail and getting together in front of their Zoom and talking about how they liked it and how they didn't and how they made theirs. And I was like, what a creative, like no one would have assumed like in the beverage industry that Zoom parties would be like this it is. And I think it's a good solution because we're becoming a global environment.
Yep.
Thankfully I'm embracing it, but and it's a great way to be able to get people from different chapters all together. I think that's an awesome goal. Getting back into some of your consultancy or how some of your advisory, AI strategy moments, what pieces do you think, obviously the work information and philosophies cross-reference each other, but with your consultancy with Accenture, do you find things that kind of aid women in data, or do you find things that conflict with what you're doing out there? Like, has there been any cross sharing of information that's helped one or the other?
Yeah, I would say it's been really important for me to stay in the industry and working, because I get that feedback of experiences of like, oh yeah, this is why I need women in data and this is why I need a community, because sometimes I feel alone in the tech space, right?
Yeah.
One, just that feedback and like having that reassurance of like feeling it even for myself of like, this is what other women are going through has been really helpful. And then I think just seeing things at scale. So I get to work in kind of in a startup world in a way with women in data. Being a young organization, we get to do things really quick and we hear feedback from community and implement it right away. And then I work for an organization that has 500,000 plus employees, right? So working in both spaces where you can take kind of the best of both worlds and then share it between your work has really benefited both sides of what I do.
Absolutely. That broadening of perspective is key. And you're teaching data science on Coursera, or Coursera. I know I've read it so many times, and yet the name, I'm like, why say it, Patricia? How is that? How is teaching? I'm assuming it's online.
Yeah, so Coursera is one of the platforms that started around the time I started data science. And it's, really the main platform for MOOCs, which is the massive open online learning communities that have really just started to take off. And it was the place where it started to first take classes for free online and just found that I loved, this industry. And so one, I really wanted to give back to that because it was so, essential in my career, but also there weren't any women data science teachers on the platform. And it is like the go-to place for like data science learning. And so I was like, I have to show up some representation and be a part of this. But I think the most amazing thing about Coursera is what can be done at scale and then what can be done from a global community. So, my learners are from all over the world. And it's just really amazing to see how many people come together and are learning the same content and subject. One of the mentors who took my class and then he became a mentor, he was living in Georgia, the country of Georgia. And, then worked for me on a few projects and now has moved back to the States and found a job. And so it's just really amazing to see how it like brings people together and you have interactions with people you would never have access to. And then the other thing is just what can be done at scale. So I think over 120,000 people have taken my class. Wow. There's no way I would be able to teach 120,000 people in a matter of a couple years. And so having all those people take the class, it just gets better and better because you get feedback at such a rapid pace that it optimizes the class in a faster way that could be done in, traditional teaching in a classroom. And so it's beneficial for the students because they're getting better content and more refined content. And then it's awesome as a teacher because you get amazing feedback. So I think it shows the power of things at scale.
Did you, so do they give you carte blanche freedom in developing the curriculum for your course, or are there guidelines? How does it work when you're developing a course like that? And did you teach more than one course?
Yes, so Coursera works exclusively with universities. So you always have to have a partner university. I was on an advisory council for University of California, Davis, and then they had this opportunity come up and they suggested that I teach the class. So if you're wanting to teach a class on Coursera's platform, you need to partner with the university. And then the university does a lot of work and they have a studio, they have actual education experts who their whole job is like, how do you formulate the best questions and the best structure? So it really helps you in making sure that you're delivering content that people can follow online. And so, yeah, that was the process for starting the class. And then I did just teach one. I was asked to teach additional ones, but it just didn't work with all the other things I had going on at the time.
Yeah, you got a lot. I love online learning. I think it's come about in my time, and I've taught online courses at the university level before, and it's really dynamic. I think a lot of people view it as like, okay, well, how are we going to make up for the fact that we're not in person? And I was like, how are you going to utilize, the fact that you're not? Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of tools available to you when you've got this virtual playground. The amount
Mhm.
of resources and things that you can pull in when you're aware that everybody's got a laptop in front of them is pretty dynamic. It's pretty amazing. And the way that you can chat is different. And I think it's kind of coming at it from a different way, and kind of divorcing yourself from this mandatory person in front of person learning, which wasn't capable for a lot of communities from the very beginning of time anyway. So I love what it does. And I think it's still a burgeoning field. Academia is a heavy giant, and it moves
Yes.
slowly. I mean, they were still on Blackboard and Canvas for a minute. I think Canvas is still going, but the kinks when I was using Canvas were nasty.
Yeah.
So,
No, I think you say something important about just inclusion, like the people that can be included now
yeah,
because of online learning. I mean, you have single moms who wouldn't be able to get away and can do it. You have people who they just don't have access to a university
yeah.
location. So just the inclusion that comes from it, I think is just a benefit for everyone.
I do too, and I believe in that, especially across academia, particularly for the United States.
Mhm.
That we have that inclusiveness built into our education is kind of paramount to what we were developed on as a nation. So carrying that through is always good. What are your goals for as far as the consultancy as well as the teaching? Are they going to remain the same? And how do you run your client as far as your day job or working as a consultant? Do you pick and choose, or do you kind of ebb and flow with the market? How does that work?
Yeah, so because I'm with a large firm, there's kind of an influx of projects that come in. And so I do have opportunity to pick and choose, which ones I think would be a really good fit.
Nice.
I also have a career coach who has been really instrumental in helping me get clear on who I am and what I enjoy. And I would encourage everyone to do that, because that helps you then when you're making decisions of like, what type of job do I want to do? What projects do I want to work on? Where do I really shine the best and make my strengths known? And so I really look for those opportunities of like, where are the opportunities where like I can be the most me, and I can let that shine, because that's where it's going to be good for my clients. That's where it's going to be good for me energy wise, where I'm going to have the energy to keep going. So
Yeah.
being really clear on yourself and knowing you will help develop all the rest of those aspects.
Absolutely. It's interesting that you mentioned that. I've talked to a lot of people that talk about professional and career coaches, even when, you think, well, she seems to have her career kind of sorted. And I think that's when they become incredibly applicable, goes from
Yes.
counselor in the college offices to career coaching.
I recommend everybody have a career coach and a therapist. They're like the double duo of just like, those people should be on like your speed dial. And just like, I heard a really great analogy where like a therapist is more backwards looking and healing past hurts, where a career coach is like forward looking and seeing where you want to go. So when you combine those two together, get ready for superhuman power. It's really awesome.
Absolutely. I like that. Well, so given that, you've just kind of advised that you have, you recommend everyone has this. My final question, what I love to ask everyone kind of the most is, if you bumped into a young woman or female identified non-binary individual tomorrow, who had a lot of the same constituents that you've had from your background. She started off with a beautiful, musical career and then switched over into data science, and then bumped into you in this little park you were strolling in and said, listen, I think I'm going to go out on my own. I want to do some consultancy, but I'm thinking about, forming this endeavor where women kind of come together. What are the top 3 pieces of advice you would give her, knowing what you know now?
Yeah, I would first of all take some quiet time to really know yourself. And whether this is like through journaling works for you, whether it's talking to somebody, but really try and dive deep into those aspects beyond what I call more the superficial layers of like a title of a job that sounds good, or, you know, a company, you know, I want to work for this amazing company or whatnot. Like take some quiet time to really pull back those layers and like, what brings you joy? What sparks like happiness and fulfillment? And like, when do you feel the most alive? And I would, first of all, get really clear on that. And then second of all, I would like write out your future. Like write a letter to your future self. I wrote my first letter to my future self when I was 10, and it's just incredible to watch your life unfold, you know, by the letter you write to yourself. So one, get clear on who you are. Second, write your future. And then third, like, go courageously in that direction. Like, know that if you set out a goal and you're clear on who you are and you want to do good in this world, like the rest will come. Like removing those barriers of fear and all the shouldn'ts, wouldn'ts, couldn't, like those have to go away so that path can be clear and all those opportunities can come to you, because they will. And that's the most fun part, is seeing how they manifest and seeing how they realize into this reality.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. So I've got take some quiet time to really know yourself and what brings you joy. Number two, write out your future, write a letter to your future self. And number three, go courageously in that direction. I love
Yes.
that. I think that's awesome advice. And I think you're right. I think part of the joy, once you really do have a direction, is watching things kind of unfold, because it's not about predicting the future. It's just about trying to steer it, right?
Yeah, you know, coming from somebody whose job is to predict things and do that. First of all predictions are wrong. If you have 100% accuracy in your model, it's a bad model. So you can never be right about predicting the future. So a little bit more opening up and allowing it to come to you is always a good thing.
Absolutely. It's I love the irony in that, or perhaps not even, and maybe it's non-irony, and you, a data scientist, saying those things. I think it's awesome. I do appreciate it. And I appreciate your time today and your candor. We are out of time, but I'll circle back around in a couple of years and find out where you and Women in Data and everything else are at, if you will give us the time.
Yeah, I would love it. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. For everyone listening, this has been Patricia Kathleen talking with Sadie St Lawrence. You can contact her via her website, sadiestlawrence.com. Thank you for giving us your time. And until we speak again next time, remember to always bet on yourself. Slancha.